Welcome to the FAFSA Leadership Lounge, where we dive into the policies shaping the work of Florida's school leaders. I'm Michelle White, Executive Director of the Florida Association of School Administrators.
And I'm Jessica Janasiewicz, lobbyist for FAFSA and for several school districts across the state of Florida.
Well, one of the first topics on our minds this week is, will we have special session this week? And the answer is that it looks like it. The House and Senate both have floor sessions scheduled for this week starting tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. The plan is for the legislature to address three issues. The first being congressional redistricting, the second, vaccine exemptions, and a third on AI protections.
That's right. And as of today, we have seen a couple of bills that have been refiled, at least on the Senate side. The first bill is Senate Bill 2D, and the reason for that is because it is a special session. That's how they designate the bill numbers from one session to the next, because obviously during this year, we will now have had more than one session in the year 2026. So 2D, which is the AI Bill of Rights. This bill sets new rules for AI transparency, child safety, data privacy, and consent. From chatbots and deepfakes to schools and government contracts, this bill is looking to reshape how AI can be used statewide. This is the exact same bill that we saw during the legislative session, the regular legislative session, that did pass the Senate, and at least during the regular session, did not go anywhere in the House. The other bill is Senate Bill 6D, which is a bill called Medical Freedom. This bill would reshape vaccine policy. It would tighten consent rules for parents. It would ban vaccine kickbacks, expand immunization exemptions, and protect access to treatments like ivermectin. Supporters call it a personal choice. Critics have warned that it could shift public health protections statewide. This bill, just like the AI bill, passed the Senate during the legislative session, a regular session, but it did not pass in the House. So we'll have to see if for some reason the House has changed their viewpoint on those bills. As for redistricting, which is of course the main reason we were having this special session, we are recording on Monday morning, and we currently don't have any proposed maps. The special session starts tomorrow. Both the House and the Senate are scheduled to have a little bit of floor time where they will gavel into their special session, and then they are also then have some committee meetings on the agenda. So one would think that one of the things that they would be looking to do is look at these proposed maps, and we do not have them yet. President Trump has voiced his support for redistricting, so stay tuned, because I have a feeling this debate is going to be very intense, but also rather quick, as they have really just scheduled up and through, I think, Thursday of this week. So not a lot of time to drag this fight out for sure.
Yeah. And other big news that we have to share this week, and probably something that more of our listeners would be excited about, is that the top line allocations for the budget were agreed upon between the House and the Senate, setting general revenue allocations at $51.98 billion. So a proclamation from the Senate President and House Speaker are expected to set dates for May 12th through the 29th, with conference committees meeting that first week, and anything that's not completed by May 15th will bump to the bigger chairs.
That's right. So even though we haven't obviously started the actual process of this negotiation, which will start on May 12th, we do already have some information just based on the allocations. Here's what we know we can expect from what each silo. Health and Human Services got about $19.2 billion in allocations. Education came in second at $16.2 billion. That is pretty historically the way we see things. Healthcare is usually a third of the budget. We're about a third of the budget, and everyone else is about a third of the budget. Over the last couple of years, we have seen healthcare get an increase, become an even larger share. We're still quite close to them, but there's now about a $3 billion difference there. So, and then when we see some of the other areas of the budget, just to give you some perspective, criminal and civil justice is at $6.96 billion. Higher ed is at 6.68 billion, and then other agencies are in that same number too. And we are down in our allocations. This was something that leadership did say they wanted to do. It was cut some of that spending, and we are in fact seeing that happen. So that's certainly something to stay tuned for. We are very excited to see that it is occurring in May rather than June like last year. Obviously, even earlier would have been better, but certainly this is a very positive step that we're moving in that direction. And then, of course, while all this is going on, the governor did approve a couple of education-related bills during last week. One of the big ones was Senate Bill 182, which was one of the two trains that moved during this last year. This was the bill that started out as being about a teacher mentorship program that allows retired teachers to mentor teachers at struggling schools. There were rules surrounding that the retirees had to have at least 3 years of experience. They had to be rated highly effective. They could mentor up to 5 teachers, and they can relieve a stipend. So that was what the bill started out as, and of course, that did remain as part of that bill. But there was also a lot of other language that was added to that bill. Everything from some zoning issues for small private schools, so 150 students or less. Um, they also had uh, other language that's contained within that bill that we'll certainly talk about is important to us. This was definitely one of the bigger bills during this legislative session. So having him sign that means we've got a lot of our policy that is starting to be approved by the governor now. That'll be in place July 1st.
That's right. And the private school zoning piece, that change is going to allow those small schools to operate in commercial or mixed use zoning districts without rezoning or getting a special exemption. So supporters of the bill believe it will help more students to take advantage of the choice scholarship funds. And we'll see how that goes. The other piece that's included in this bill is cursive writing. So this is now going to be required for 3rd through 5th grade. And by the end of 5th grade, students must show proficiency in the ability to write upper and lowercase letters, write words and sentences with proper spacing and alignment, and the ability to read and write essays and assignments in cursive. The state board will need to adopt standards, of course, for this. So we'll see more as we move forward. The second topic is is also included in here. I guess really the fourth topic requires portraits of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln in a conspicuous place at each public school in the district. The Florida Department of Education is going to be required to select which portraits will be used, and they have to make them available to each district.
That's right. And there was language contained in this bill that does say that it is basically uh, attached to the potential for funding. So basically, it says, you know, if if the legislature allocates dollars for these portraits, then the DOE has to give them out. So that is good news for our school districts just when it comes from a monetary perspective. This is not something, one, they have to purchase, or two, they have to have a committee to choose these things. The DOE will take care of it if they're funded. So that was certainly positive. We have lots and lots of things that our folks at the school districts have to do. So at least this is one thing they don't have to worry about as their responsibility. There are two other issues to highlight that are contained in this bill. First, they do have language that limits charter schools from dismissing students for academic reasons. If their school rather, is in any kind of school improvement or corrective action plan, that charter cannot dismiss students based on academic performance. So essentially, what it's saying is, if you're in a spot where you're trying to improve your school grade, you can't get rid of any of these kids that are maybe not performing as well in hopes that it would then help your scores go up, if that makes sense. And then the second topic is related to unused tax credit scholarship funds. Instead of the funds going back to the state, they would go back to the scholarship organizations to then again be used for scholarships, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. So the governor also approved Senate Bill 52, which was called Security Services at Places of Worship. This bill allows churches, synagogues, mosques, and other faith institutions to use unpaid volunteers for armed security without requiring professional security licenses. Supporters say that the change gives congregations more flexibility to protect themselves amid growing safety concerns, while critics, of course, raise questions about training, oversight, and liability.
That's right. And we're also seeing a lot of action at the local level. The Pinellas County School Board is looking to add a few more policies that will be voted on later this year. The first relates to e bikes and policies that would be in place if students ride them to school. So students would have to walk them onto school grounds and park them in bike racks or other storage areas. They would not be allowed to charge them while they're on campus. And then also, the policy would release the district from liability of anything happening to them while they are on campus.
That's right. And the district is also looking at a policy around the use of smart glasses and other wearable recording devices, specifically ones that can record, transmit, or store audio, video, or communications. So schools were actually asking for guidance due to privacy concerns and potential cheating. And so the goal is, trying to limit any of those concerns. And then the other policy that they're talking about relates to a local school district policy on drinking on school buses. So the ban would be removed for water only to ensure that students are able to stay hydrated and bring their water bottles to school each day um, without concern. And so, honestly, Jess, when I was looking at this, it brought me back to my, like, middle and high school days of riding the school bus, and, like, we'd be on a bus for a long time with no water, no nothing, and, I love that we're prioritizing hydration for kids these days and just encouraging that, but, man, I think we were a generation of dehydrated students.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking the same thing. We do seem to, just the policies at school districts in general seem to be much more proactive about letting the kids have that water bottle at their desk, now in this case, have it on the bus. Um, I think back in our day, they were like, you better not have that thing out.
That's right. That's right. No food, no drink. No.
That's right. So times have changed, at least something, we've had some good changes to be sure. Um, Also, of course, we've had a lot of election news in the last couple of weeks as well. So we did want to mention that last week we saw Congressman and Congresswoman Cheryl Liz McCormick resign from office due to a 15 count federal indictment. It was very, very, very last minute. I believe the House was looking to start hearings on whether or not to remove her. And right before that was scheduled to begin, she did actually resign. Locally, there are some calling for the governor to schedule a special session to fill that seat. However, when you're usually this close to a general election, they generally leave the positions unfilled.
Yeah, and the timeline just for, the state to do a special election, there's gotta be plenty of notice, and then would those her seat's already up for election, so are they gonna just have to run again really fast
Right.
like some of our other seats that we've seen, earlier this year? The Congresswoman will still be in the news for a while, though. Her criminal charges regarding the federal relief funds that she received during the COVID-19 pandemic will be heard in court in February 2027, and she will try to regain her congressional seat. She recently announced that she's running for Congress again in a very crowded field, which also includes 1990s rapper Luther Uncle Luke Campbell.
I mean, you just sometimes can't make some of this up when you think
That's
about,
right.
like, who would have thought that was the sentence you would say? But I guess we'll see. This is going to be an interesting year for elections, to be sure. We can just already tell that with what we've had, some of the craziness we've already experienced. So there's qualifying and things that will happen very soon as well. So that'll give us a real idea of who we can expect to see on the ballot for all these seats, both congressionally and of course at the state level as well. I think that's one thing to mention that is going to be interesting this week. Also, as we look at whatever the proposal is for the congressional redistricting is, there are lots of people now, current sitting House members, that are wondering what their district may look like once these maps are redrawn. They may have all different kind of population that they're then going to have to run and represent. So certainly what they do here in Tallahassee this week is going to be very, very interesting to all of us. But certainly if you're a congressman, or if you're running to become one, you've got all eyes on what's happening here in Tallahassee. So we will keep you updated on this and everything else that's happening in special session this week as we progress.
Absolutely. And we just want to say thank you so much for listening. Talking about the elections as well makes me think about our FASA Political Action Committee and how much that committee really gets to kick off so much work right now as we start to prepare for how our organization will support candidates that are running at the state level. So state House, state Senate. You can find more and certainly make your contribution to the PAC through the resources link in the podcast notes. And then thank you again so much for listening. We are excited to bring the Leadership Lounge to you and updates around education policy and more to come next week. So stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lounge podcast presented by the Florida Association of School Administrators. Today's podcast was hosted by Michelle White and Jessica Janasiewicz. Podcast was produced by Jeff Willoughby. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. New episodes are released each Monday. For show topics, suggestions, questions, or comments, please email communications@fasa.net. We hope you enjoyed the show.